Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Stat Check. This is episode 93. With the episode is entitled 1 Month In Meta Top Dogs, which is both true and a reference. And we will cover that as we go. As you can see, I am joined this week by the stats people. After last week, we had the kids table. Now we have the stats table. So we will have a ton of data coverage. We'll be going through the last 2 weeks. Obviously, I did a quick hits last week, but with Nathan and Jeremy and Toll, we will be going through all of the top line, super interesting information from the last couple of weeks. We'll also be talking a bit about the events we were at, respectively. I was at the Birmingham ITT, Jeremy was at the Dallas event judging, so we'll have a little bit of coverage on those. And yeah, the usual vamping, nonsense, terrible plugs, and questions from the audience. So with that, Nathan, how are you? How was your week off, and how has your last couple of weeks been?
I'm doing great actually right now. We got a new couch, which we kind of desperately needed because our old futon couch broke at like the hinge. And then we had family in for the Memorial Day weekend. So, I don't know. It's pretty nice. On the hobby end of things, I found like almost 2,000 points of sisters like tucked away in like a bottom box inside of another box underneath my hobby desk. And I took them out and I was like, why not paint these? So now I have like 20 jump pack sisters plus characters plus like a bunch of battle sisters who I'm
Nathan's
painting
painting
right
Sisters
now.
Rules in Sisters Rules confirmed OP in Crusade for the new book.
I so a new on the topic of Crusade, a new Crusade League did just start signups locally, and I was going to hit the sign up button, but then I just was like, but then I can't practice to win War Masters, and then I decided not.
Just bring your War Masters list to the Crusade League.
I truly hope that it was actually the fact that you couldn't face us ridiculing you for it on the show.
No,
like, I can't do it.
Nathan's immune to that now.
I am actually not, and it hurts my feelings sometimes. I'm kidding.
Oh.
So I've been painting some sisters. They're in like a grimdark white scheme, and I got Celestine and a Lady Olander to make a kit bashed version of Lady of Celestine with like the shroud kind of thing going on. So I've got all that ready. It's a lot of fun. I actually enjoy it quite a bit. And then as for every Saturday, I play D&D with folks, and then we actually have a new campaign starting tomorrow. So at our apartment, which will be great. Desperately doesn't mean that I won't be cleaning like my entire hobby space so that people can sit in it without being covered by models. Definitely. And I also have been playing practice games with sisters and learning that they're terrible into some profiles, but that Vol plus Paragons in Overwatch is hilarious when they pick up like 5 out of 6 models in a 3-wound squad. It's great. It's very funny. The game was against Jeremy, who was hiding, but it's funny because he still won that game. But that moment was kind of funny. Jeremy, how was your weekend?
All I want to say is full. I can't even be mad because I've been playing Sisters for the last few months anyways. So when we set up on that table, I knew what I was in for on that. I knew what was good in my army to you, and I knew what was good on your army to me. And I still went, I'm going to move this unit up and try to kill Vol with it. And then Vol went, I'm going to Overwatch and just score 4 hits with Meltas.
It's pretty average, right?
Yeah. Oh, great.
I assume that's just what everything does in Overwatch.
Yeah. I am doing significantly better than I was this time last week. So I was at the Dallas Open. We'll talk a little bit more about that earlier. Helping out their judge team as I have been for the last year now. The event was a blast, ton of fun. Got to meet some cool people. Got to see a bunch of people that I see at almost every Open. It's always amazing to see those folks. Always a blast to be able to be a part of this and to help out. However, my return flight home, I got to Toronto on time. And then I sat in Toronto for 7 hours longer than I was supposed to for my last 1-hour flight home to Ottawa. So instead of getting home and to the Ottawa airport at about 7 p.m., I got there at 2 a.m.
I hear that's good for you.
The worst part about it wasn't like it was just a delay where they pushed us back. It was every half hour they would push us another half hour. With a Pearson Airport, yeah. Thankfully, the A&W in that side of the airport's not 24 hours, so I at least had food. But yeah, it was not pleasant. It's not something I ever recommend to people. If ever I get routed through Pearson again, there is a small temptation to just cancel the Ottawa flight and drive.
You would have saved time.
I would have got if I had the minute I landed in Toronto just gone to the rental center and grabbed a car and say that takes like an extra half hour, I would have gotten home 4 hours earlier.
I'm really sorry that happened to you, but also it's very funny at that point.
At the end of the day, I could laugh about it, but as every delay was hitting, I was cursing not the people who were working the actual like Air Canada employees right then and there, but I was cursing Air Canada's logistics and planning and whatever goddamn software they use to figure all this out. Because the best part about this was my flight was originally supposed to take off at 6. I got rebooked twice to a flight that was leaving slightly earlier. The 6 o'clock flight that I was originally supposed to be on landed on time. So it was as a courtesy of their system that I went, and now they're denying me compensation for the delay, saying I'm fine.
Oh, of course.
Of
That's
course.
usually how that works.
Yeah, just airlines being airlines. So I'm just going to go through the usual appeal process. That's fun. On a Warhammer face, like I said, Dallas Open was wonderful. It was really fun seeing the Orcs, Custodes, and Tau books all in play at once to see how they all went. It turns out Bully Boys are really good until they can't make a Battle Shock test when Shadows in the Warp gets popped.
Seems reasonable. What if I
Yeah.
couldn't use any of these really powerful stratagems that I have?
What if I just can't hold objectives and you're playing Swarm?
Yeah. Not that you need to battle shock people. Like nobody's Meganob unit is ever getting out of 20 Termagants. Like,
Yeah, that's a very funny combo. Yeah, aside from that, it was great. This past weekend, I was just chilling, really, just doing some hobby. I also dug out a box of Sisters that I found, because I've been working on my Sisters for the better part of a couple of years now, and I finally decided that nope, it's time for me to paint up the other half of what I had started painting, and discovered at that point that for some reason I have 30 assembled, not painted, 30 assembled Seraphim and only 10 Zephyrim, and I don't know why.
And so that when you buy the new box, you'll get 50 more Zephyrim and you'll be at the right number.
Well, then I'll be at 25, and I did find a box unassembled, so I will have 30 and 30. And I also have, I think I have 8 Inferno Sisters and 4 Flamer Sisters. Might be the other way around, but I have enough that I can run almost any combination, and it's not like Zephyrim have weapon options anyways. So it is kind of cool. I kind of like the idea. I'm hoping that the book is fun, but I'm also hoping that the book's not cracked. Because Sisters are already very strong, so I don't know. We shall see. And that's how you been?
I've been all right. Obviously, I was on the show last week, so a little bit less. But as I told everybody, I got scammed into traveling to Birmingham, so I managed to do the good old 7-hour commute each direction for a 2-day event, which I don't understand how you guys do that like all the time in the States. Traveling 7 hours for a tournament is absurd. You know what I mean? But like you hear about people in the States and Anthony's like, yeah, I just like drove to this tournament. I'm like, how could you possibly do that to yourself? And I don't understand it, but we did it, and it was a really good event. We took a team with 5 of the Team Scotland guys, so we had World Eaters, Chaos Space Marines with the old Codex or Index, I guess. Necron's Corrupted Court, which was point for point exactly the same as Josh's list. So it's a really innovative meta decision. We had Anthony's World Eaters list point for point, and then we had an Ironstorm list. Yeah, I think that was about it. Just good old-fashioned fun Warhammer. We took that down, and we ended up going 3 wins and 2 draws, finishing 4th of 70 teams, which was super awesome. It was great to have the guys go down and play against some of the really good British, other British players, and just have a great time with it. My games personally, I think combined total, I played less than 4 hours of Warhammer that weekend. The highlight goes out to the game I played against Custodes, where I was done and had to table the guy before the table next to me had finished deploying, which was an interesting experience. Shout out to the Vindicator, who picked up an entire squad of Alaris Terminators by himself. Yeah, so powerful energy. I had a really good time playing. The CSM. He had a last run out with good old Abaddon with crit 5s. Had him one shot a race squad. Well, he doesn't get crit 5s in Soulforge Warpack and Pac-Man Zealots anymore because he doesn't have all the god keywords.
Yeah, so you can only and you can't even do the janky thing of attaching him to something else because he is just undivided, so he
Just
can only
undivided,
lead
yeah.
undivided units.
So
That's a real
rest in peace,
shame.
Abaddon's crit 5s. He only has regular crits now, so he only kills like most things, not everything.
Doesn't kill. He just kills God's son, not God.
Yeah, I mean, killing a wraith prick with him was definitely felt a little strong. It was a good feeling. So yeah, it was a really good time. The English team won that tournament. Ignite came in second, and then the Seams War Masters team came in third, and we popped up with fourth with 3 wins and 2 draws. Top losing team with War Masters was 4 wins and a loss. Interesting thing for this one, the tiebreak was game wins, which is not something I've ever seen before.
Why not just diff?
I don't really know. So yeah, War Masters had 17.5 game wins. We had 17 game wins, and Mind Goblins had 16.5 game wins. And that was the tie breaks for third, fourth, and fifth.
That is weird.
It certainly was. So yeah,
Now
interesting
I'm
event.
curious as to what the
good
result
play
would have been if
teams.
they had done battle points instead.
We would have been fifth. I think War Master still came second. It was War Master still would have come third. Mind Goblins would have jumped us at that point. Yeah, but I mean, there was a lot of like the team that had a loss. I think they played, they had a 100-0 round or something like that, which obviously skews things like that, right? Because you go and you lose a round early, you go down into the lower bracket, etc., etc. Right? It's just always messy with tiebreaks.
You talking about War Master?
Vanguard, I think, were highest on battle points.
Nope, they weren't.
Info.
I'm looking at it right now. Vanguard were below War Masters on battle points by 7. They lost round 2, not round 1. They had a 97-point round 1.
Yeah. There was definitely a lot of. It's always the way with team events like that, right? When you have a very concentrated team and it pairs into a team that is just be there to have fun, and you just there were some wild round 1s. I think there was a round 4 that was in 100-0 and things like that. It's just brutal to watch, just see the scores come in. It's like, wow, they scored a point. The guys we played in round 3 Sterngard had a 99-1 round 2, I think it was. Just brutal shellackings.
That's wild. Yeah, Bad Moon Brawlers had 3 draws and their round 4 was 100-0.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think I've ever put that up in a 5-man team event.
I didn't think it was possible, frankly.
No, because people aren't just going to score points.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting perspective on the tiebreaker because it does do the thing of winning a game 11-9 and winning a game 20-0 in that sense are both roughly equivalent. So you don't get if you're going to win around 100-0, it doesn't necessarily catapult you to the top of your bracket above somebody who played tougher games.
Why not just use strength of schedule then?
Yeah, I know. It's just another way of doing the same kind of thing, though, right? I guess. I don't know. I don't think there's. It was interesting. I don't know if I would choose it, but I can kind of see the merits.
We should do it at WTC.
Schedules, probably. Just do WTC, yeah. But I mean, it's a Zach event. They can never do that.
No. We should do it at WTC.
Oh, we should do game wins at WTC.
All right, you guys. We're going to transition to stats. This team's nonsense has gone on long enough when we're here to talk about singles events.
We sure are.
All right, so we're going to cobble together 2 weeks of data. And then we're going to talk about basically the meta since the data slate drop in review to kind of talk about where we are, where we've been, and where we're going. Maybe, I don't know. Something like that. More like where we've been and talk about what we were kind of right about maybe at the start of the slate and what we've been wrong about so far as the slate has gone. I don't know, man. We're just going to talk about stuff and we're going to see where it goes. So for the last 2 weeks, if we're looking at win rate as the primary sorter, Space Wolves have been the best performing faction of the last 2 weeks, with 73 players making up 2.6% of the meta, a 60% win rate, 3 event wins, 6 top 4s, 10 top 10s, and a 1.86 over rep, which I actually think is almost the highest. There's 2 other factions higher than them in over rep. But it's wild to see that Wolf Jail might be real and that everybody was just wrong the whole time. We'll talk about if that stays consistent when we look at the month-long stats, but Space Wolves, very good. Gene Stealer Colts are actually second by win rate, 1.1% of the meta, 32 players over the last couple of weeks, a 58.4% win rate, 1 event win, 2 top 4s, and 7 top 10s for a 1.42 over rep. Not seeing the good old 5 over reps because the one Gene Stealer Colt player in the world who can win events is winning events, but I digress. 1,000 Suns are in third, 117 players, 4.1% of the meta, a 57.1% win rate, 4 event wins, 10 top 4s, 17 top 10s, and a casual 1.94 over rep. T-Suns probably are fine. Everything's fine. The world is definitely not kind of sort of potentially on fire in a sorcerer's fashion, I promise. Grey Knights are in fourth, 5.2% of the meta, 148 players, 55.8% win rate. No event wins, 5 top 4s, 17 top 10s, and a 0.77. So not quite closing the deal, but a lot of players kind of getting into position. Then rounding out our top 5 is Orcs, 252 players over the last couple weeks, 8.8% of the meta, which is a huge meta representation. I don't think I've ever seen Orcs ever that high. Where did all you Orc players come from? I don't really understand it.
They were all strapped to the bandwagon riding in.
True. 55.3% win rate, 6 event wins, 22 top 4s, 49 top 10s, and the actual highest over rep at 1.98 over rep, almost 2 over those last 2 weeks, but not quite there yet. You Orc players could play better and harder, obviously. Paint all your models red so they go faster. I don't know, man. Pick a thing. Or blue so they're lucky. Maybe both. Maybe blue and red.
Purple so they can't be targeted outside of 12.
Purple, and then you can play all your bases as empty. Because purple Orcs are never there. And then kind of running out the top 10, we have Sisters with 100 even players, a 53.3% win rate, 1 event win, 6 top 4s, 13 top 10s, and a 1.36. Necrons falling out kind of a bit. 219 players, 7.7% meta representation, 53% win rate. No event wins over the last couple weeks, 7 top 4s, 25 top 10s, and a 0.72. Necrons maybe toppled, unless there's something wrong with that data set, which is possible.
I'm going to speak up now because I think there might be. And I'm just going to ask this right now. Are you looking at 19 to 26 or 5 to 26 for May?
I thought I was looking at 19 to 26. We're just talking about the last couple of weeks. Let me double check. Yeah.
Your player numbers have been off is why I'm asking.
Yeah. This is just the 19th through the 26th. Yeah.
No, the only reason I'm asking is that some of the numbers reflect the 19th. Some of the numbers reflect the 5th. So I think your table might have froze halfway through.
My table.
Not the table, but yes. In the last 2 weeks, Necrons have not won any events.
I went back to the base table instead of my copy-pasted table.
That might be doing it. It's fine.
Necrons
all the event, all the events.
True. In the last 2 weeks, they have not won any events. They have had 7 top 4s and a 0.77 over rep.
Oh man,
it's because Josh hasn't been.
Wow, some of this stuff is.
Josh has been playing team events in reffing Dallas. That's why.
It's true. Funny. The last 2 weeks, he didn't play in any singles.
Some of the over reps were also wrong, but not in pattern, but in size.
Yeah, I think there was just when you copy the table over, there was one or two things that were slightly different that didn't. It's fine.
Congratulations, copy pasting. And then rounding out the top 10 is World Eaters at a 51.9% win rate. But they have 3 event wins and 5 top 10, top 4s, and 18 top 10s for a 0.87. So almost perfectly balanced.
Anthony's not going to like to hear that because it means they don't get buffs.
No. It's true.
At the
good. Very, very bottom for the last couple weeks are Dark Angels. Despite having 2 event wins and a 0.98 over it, which means they're perfectly balanced in spite of their 44.1% win rate. That's not right. God damn it, table. All right. Resorting the table. Adeptus Mechanicus are actually at the bottom.
How is last week I did this less scuffed?
It's because I moved from my copy-pasted table, which was organized, to a different table that wasn't organized, and so I had to reorganize it real quick.
None of that. We're out of practice. We haven't been on in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's also that. I'm just out of practice of reading Excel tables. Adeptus Mechanicus are actually the worst faction with a 41.4% win rate and no placings of any kind whatsoever.
At least that makes sense to me. Like, it's fine when my dad back at the bottom because I understand why they're at the bottom. Like, it makes
to be fair, Dark Angels aren't far off of that.
No, they're 4th from the bottom. They didn't move that much further up.
So
Space
you know what
Marines
is a real army?
are Space Marines, the second worst faction on this list. Yes, Nathan is getting tabled on stream. It's true, Ben Michik. Space Marines at a 43.5% win rate over the last 2 weekends, a 5 top 4s, 10 top 10s, and a 0.77. So they're second worst, but they're like just kind of below everything, which is fine. Everything's fine. And then we have Custodes with 69 players over the last 2 weeks, a 43.8% win rate, 2 top 4s, 6 top 10s, and a 0.48 for overrep. Man, Custodes representation though in the meta has
up over the last little bit. Yeah, but yes, their representation is like half of what it was before the Codex.
I think it actually might be almost a third of what it was.
I
I think they were flirting with 9, like around 8.7 to 9, and now they're at like 3.3. So they're like, they're not doing too hot.
But I mean, 40, like just shy of that 45% mark isn't a horrible place to be.
True. Dark Angels are next at 68 players, that 44.1% win rate I mentioned, to 2 event wins, 4 top 4s, and 9 top 10s. So doing just fine on overrep at 0.98. Chaos Knights are the 5th worst faction, 45.2% win rate, so we're back into the win rate bubble. No event wins, 1 top 4, and 7 top 10s for a 0.23 overrep, which is actively abysmal.
Hey, it's not 0.
It's not 0.
It's better than an army that's above them.
It's true. There is a faction with a 0 above them. After them, for kind of GT winners over the last couple of weeks, we have Tyranids, 45.4% win rate and 2 GT wins. Black Templars, who have 2 GT wins and a 47.9. Chaos Demons, who have a 48.4% win rate and event win. Leagues of Votann with a 48.5% win rate and an event win. Imperial Knights with an event win and a 49.2% win rate. Chaos Space Marines with an event win and a 49.6% win rate. Oh man, so many people having event wins is kind of nice. Blood Angels with 2 event wins and a 50.1. Drukhari with an event win, which I think is actually just Skari going and winning a GT-sized event.
Yes, Skari won the Capital Clash event, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, which was an event at the Dread Dragon that was held in commemoration of our store owner Dan's birthday, because he just wanted to play Warhammer all weekend. And he attracted a whole bunch of people from out of town by saying there was $1,000 cash prize for the winner.
I should have flown over for that. I could have beat Skari on Drukhari.
A lot of people thought that they could. They didn't.
Yeah, but they're Canadian. Like, it doesn't
Ah,
count.
wow. Shots fired. All right. And then now I'm going to sort this table so that it's correct. And now we're going to go back to the 5th of May. So we have 4 weekends of data, basically the weekend that the slate dropped. And I am going to double check that I sorted it correctly. Watch my computer think about it for a second, and then it looks like it's sorted correctly. All right. The number 1 performing faction over the last month in is, who is it?
Space Wolves.
It is Space Wolves.
I hate this.
A big old Awu, three wolves howling at the moon to Space Wolves players.
I thought it was 4 wolves to make up for their 4 GT wins in the last 4 weeks.
True. They have 4 GT wins, a 60% win rate, 11 top 4s, 18 top 10s for a 2.17 overrep, which is the highest overrep of all factions. They're actually not even that like low on player representation, so it's not even that their player rep is inflating.
Yeah, they have almost 400 games in the last 4 weeks. Like this isn't a blip.
Yeah, 73 players, a 2.6% meta representation. We might joke about it a whole heck of a lot, but they're also like tied for 3rd in GT wins. They're doing pretty good.
Fucking Wolf Show.
If you asked me at gunpoint, Space Wolves would be the 5th faction I would pick for Space Marines. And I refuse to accept that the alternative is true in the stats.
So, like, it's funny. It's true. And it's probably one of the misses we made where we were like, maybe Wolf Jail's real, but it's probably not. And now they've decided over the last month to prove that statement and all of our assumptions about life just like slightly wrong.
For the last 4 weeks, every single week, Wolves have been on top. And like the first week of post slate, I was like, okay, it was a really quiet weekend. Maybe it's a blip. Second week, still a kind of a quiet weekend. It's a blip. But the last 2 weeks, we have had over 1,000 players at, God knows, I think over 27 events over the last 2 weeks. And it's held steady. Actually, it's gone up. So
Yeah,
clearly,
it's-
wolves work.
Wolves is very, very clearly wolves are a perfectly competent army to play Warhammer with, and it just doesn't reconcile with my worldview.
The amount of suffering I'm watching Innes go through as we talk about this is actually quite funny. Because if you just look over at the screen and watch his face as we talk more and more about how Space Wolves are the best, you can watch more and more of his soul just like dying, withering, and going away. But you know,
It's bold
that's
to assume
fine.
that I had one in the first place, to be fair. But
So I guess as long as we're talking about it, what kind of is the thing that is like making Space Wolves kind of tick at the moment then, if we have to take a look at it?
It's all Stormlance. Like occasionally you'll have a Gladius list that does well, but 99% of the time it is Stormlance, which gives your entire army advanced fallback and charge. And then you slap in 18 Thunderwolf Cavalry, which are T6 with 4 wounds and a 3-up armor, 4-up invuln, and you give an assortment of characters to those things because they can have both a battle leader as well as a captain join them. Also on Thunderwolves, also have like 6 wounds with a 3-up armor, 4-up invuln. You can give one of them, because they have 2 characters, you can actually have 2 enhancements in the same unit. But one character will always have the upgraded Frost Fangs, whatever that's called, that gives them a real serious punch. And another one of the characters will have the enhancement that allows you to come in a turn earlier, which means that you can come in from Strat Reserves turn 1.
Or Ingress turn 1. It's one of the few that has the wording that allows Ingress to work on as well.
Yes, that is correct. It is one of the few ones. Go double check that, but I'm pretty sure that it is one of the few ones that does allow that.
It's not restricted to in your movement phase. It has the more flexible wording.
That's correct. It's the one that I've been asked the most questions about. Well, why does it work? And I went, yeah, because it's just if the bearer's unit is in strategic reserves, for the purposes of setting up that unit on the battlefield, treat the current battle round number as being 1 higher than it actually is. So you can rapid ingress turn 1 if you go second, and then they advance in charge. They move 10 inches base, and basically you get locked in your deployment zone by a whole lot of really decent stuff. Quintero also raises a point. Wolfen got a decent boost because now their melee weapons are actually damaged too. They're dirt cheap, and they are an annoying stat line to try to kill because I think they're T5 2 wounds with a 4-up invuln and a 5-up or 6-up Feel No Pain.
6-up Feel No Pain and Fight on Death and a 4-up.
Yes, so like they're just annoying for armies to choose.
They also have a weirdly good gun that I think people underestimate. It's
the assault launchers. It's like strength 5, shot. But it hits on 5s, I think.
Sure, 4s within cursors if you're not a coward.
Okay, Dennis, go away. I know you've taken a little bit of brain damage from knowing that wolves are on top.
Don't put infiltrators in your list. Put in cursors in instead. I promise you'll prefer it.
Willows, no. You can ingress that turn 1 with that one because the wording is just 1 battle round higher.
Yeah, you can't ingress with things like the dropout ability because that says during the movement phase of your first, second, and third turn, etc., etc.
This is the only one that actually works that I'm aware of.
Yeah, same.
Because even the Deathwing Assault one is also is all very clearly in your movement phase. Yeah, no, it's, and then you look through it, like 18 Thunderwolf Cavalry is what, like they're 30 points for each, so it's almost nothing. It's 540 points plus your characters, and then you have the rest of your army.
See, there you go.
Yeah. Ashley Thompson points out that with Oaths and the Strat, a Wolfen squad kills a full 20 gaunts in 1 volley. Yeah, that sounds about right. Which is terrifying. Wolfen are way stronger than Arcos, yeah, and better in basically every possible way. No, they don't have a 4-up Feel No Pain.
If Arcos have a OC value in the Codex, I'm going to rip someone in half.
That's true. Wolfen are OC 0. That is their downside.
It is genuinely a very real cost to that day.
Do they have a conditional OC, or is it just always OC 0?
Always OC 0. They're not like Death Company, where if there's a chaplain nearby or a battle leader or something like that.
Chaplains are actually Death Company are actually OC 1. They get set to 0 if there is not a chaplain nearby. It's the other way around. They don't gain an OC if there's a chaplain nearby, so they don't keep their OC if they're battle shocked, for example.
But yeah, the Wolf Jail match can be very fun if you know what to do into it, but it catches a lot of people off guard because it is a fast-moving, durable brick. They also have reactive moves after you shoot them. They have reactive moves when you move near them. It's just a mess. I was put in Wolf Jail back in January, and it was unpleasant.
So what do you do then when you're paired into a Space Wolf player playing Wolf Jail?
Any melee unit in your list, please just stop dying to them because you get trapped in your deployment zone. they do so little damage when they're charged. Their roll is conditional on them charging. It's +1 damage on the charge. They have characters like Canis Wolfborn, things like that do more wounds on the charge. They have a stratagem in shooting, which is -1 to hit and wound, which is a battle tactic, which can be reused through a captain or a Wolfram Thunderwolf. Just charge them. Please just play any army that can charge. Or like you could probably get away with it as Tau because mass damage 4, which is like exactly the right profile to kill Thunderwolves. But
yeah,
otherwise,
Riptides rip through.
stop
Thunderwolves.
cutting your melee units and just go and charge them. They're so much less scary when they're charged. They're AP1 as well. And the Stormlance detachment doesn't really help that. Most Space Marine detachments have a sort of conditional like lance and then additional effect stratagem. Gladius is lance and +1 AP, but only an assault doctrine for the AP, etc., etc. Sons of Sanguinius is lance and lethal hits. The Space Wolves one is lance and reroll charges, which is the least damaging version of all of them. Exploit that. They are very, very weak to that. Also, scout, infiltrate, move blocking. Move block them. They are Thunderwolves. They are on huge bases and have required to go through spots. But don't think you can just shoot your way out of Wolfshail. You are going to have to do something to them.
Yeah, that's a really good summary of how to deal with Wolfshail. I will say that the few times that I've had success into them was things like Deathwing Knights, actually, because maces are strength 6, AP 1, damage 2. You can push it to AP 2 in Gladius, and it's interesting. But that was
You actually don't need any AP against them, really. AP 1 does enough into them.
well, if they have AOC, that's the thing.
They have AOC, but they're a pretty bad target for AOC in general. But yes,
yeah, it's just that maces at AP 1 hurt a lot.
I mean, maces are bad. Yes,
Deathwing Knights. I want them to be good.
You're gonna have to wait until 11th edition, man. They'll be good when Desolation Marines are good again.
No, those can never be good.
Those two data sheets are only ever good together, man. It's Desolation Marines and Deathwing Terminators. Those are always good together now. It was true at the end of 9th. It was true at the start of 10th. They are irreparably joined.
Yeah. Noah, no, don't do good in chat. This is a good point. Again, you can move block them, and also if you're getting into the combat, you can also wrap them to force desperate breakouts because they are big circular bases. So if you have, like, for example, a unit of 20 boys that you've charged into them, and they want to be able to fall back and charge, well, every single model that you successfully wrap and trap, like TriPoint with 3 models, will have to take a desperate escape test when they fall back. And on a 1 or 2, the model just dies.
Modifiers, if you have any sources of that, things like Boomdakis Nazwagons can be really annoying for them.
Nurglings.
Nurglings, yeah.
All right. The second best faction of the last month is Genestealer Cult, who had 32 players. Not the lowest number of players, but the second lowest number of players. With a 58.4% win rate, 1 event win, 2 top 4s, 8 top 10s, and a 0.90 over rep.
Book is still pretty good, apparently.
Third
That's
list.
all right.
Third place is the one that we've been talking about a lot. We talked about a lot at the beginning of the data slate, which was Thousand Sons, 117 players, 4.1% of the meta, 57.1% win rate, 6 GT wins, 13 top 4s, 24 top 10s, and a 1.6 over rep, which is the second most GT wins of any faction since drop of the slate.
Thousand Sons are pretty good.
I guess we might as well just talk a little bit about Thousand Sons. What's good about Thousand Sons, and why are we worried about them?
They just do all the stuff. They cheat. They're literally just cheating at Warhammer, I think is the title.
To clarify what Innis means by their cheating, and if anyone who hasn't played against Thousand Sons, it's more likely that you have now that their play rate has come up considerably. Their Cabal rituals are some of the most powerful abilities you could ask for in a game. Being able to move out of phase your units, which then means that you can set up or move considerably further than your units have any right to. You then just get to do some very insane things, like move a Rhino up, disembark within 3, and then double move the unit that just disembarked, or come in from deep strike outside of infiltrators and then move inside the infiltrator range to flame them, to steal objectives. So that on its own, out of phase moving, is immensely powerful. Add in the ability to do targeted mortal wounds and just turn off armor saves, and you're in an amazing spot. Ben McGurk, they are playing 11th edition. Noah highlights turn off saves, mortals, movement, slowing effects, because the Exalted Sorcerers on disc give you half your movement, advance, and charge rolls, which is absolutely punishing. You have to be within 18, but also if you're playing against a melee army like Blood Angels, who don't have advance in charge, their max threat with a jump pack unit is 12 inches when you slow them.
Yep.
And if you're playing against,
Technically, it's 13 because you can declare at the double 6 charge distance.
yes,
But
okay,
yes,
but that would still necessitate them rolling boxcars on the charge.
technically an 11 again because they would half round up. But yes,
Yeah.
I think it was
yes,
really funny
there is
when I was
tiny nuances to that I will cling to. Because
Sit
it
at
makes sense to slightly
13.1 and they can't charge you if you get the roll.
Yep.
Same with orcs. You can do the exact same thing, even if they have, because they move 6, they advance 6, and then they can charge 12. You do the exact same thing to them. You sit at 13.1, you slow them, and that unit of Megadobs goes, huh?
And I've genuinely never seen somebody fail that roll. Like, just
I failed it
roll.
every other game, probably, but definitely less often than I should. And yeah, the slow is probably one of the most punishing things in that army because of how prevalent melee armies are starting to become again. And then you also factor in the fact that they have kind of on demand no line of sight shooting. It does require them to put one of their psychers in a position where it will usually die to get that, but Magnus shooting it indirect at 33 inches with basically no penalties is terrifying.
It's on demand enough.
Yeah.
I personally find just no scoping whatever you want with Doombolt to be the funniest thing.
Oh, for
Like,
sure.
it-
That
this
tech
is
marine that's alone
definitely-
up 20 inches away from you. Oh, I've got a Mutalisk sitting right next to me. You die.
Somebody in my local was like, yeah, man, just run a Calexis. That's the anti-psyker tech. And I was like, look, they just get Doombolted. That Doombolt is not a psychic attack. Is it a psychic attack?
The mortal wounds inflicted by it are considered to be psychic attacks, and so therefore will trigger the Feel No Pain.
Where's that?
It's
In the rule
rules
for
on mortal
psychic.
wounds.
Weapons.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. That's important, though.
It is.
That means you do get the 2 of Feel No Pain and probably don't die to that Doombolt.
Probably don't die, but then suddenly they come within 12 of you and hit you with a dev wound attack, which you
Don't get a save against, and then you die.
you still get the Feel No Pain, but you probably still die.
True. I mean, there's only so much you can do with a 2-up Feel No Pain against like 5d6 flamer attacks and stuff like
Well,
that.
the flamers aren't psychic, so they just kill
Yeah,
you.
They just kill you. There's only so much
It's
you
really
can
cool
do.
that those guns are free now.
All right. Grey Knights
When's the last time
are
you saw a
in
bolter on a rubric ring?
Beginning
Last
of the edition,
edition.
probably.
last edition. All right.
Number 4.
4th place is Grey Knights. 148 players, 5.2% of the meta, a 55.8% win rate, 4 GT wins, 13 top 4s, 33 top 10s, and a 1.27 over rep. Turns out teleporting hulls still good.
Yeah. Turns out that Brotherhood librarians are fucking broken too still.
Look, how many times do you think they can upgrade up that data sheet by 10 points before people stop playing it?
I think at least once more, maybe twice.
I reckon 140 people would still play it.
I mean, playing them at 130.
They're 120 right now, right? They're the same as a
oh
stretch
yeah. Yeah, but 130 is probably the upper cap of what I'd be happily pay for that data sheet. But like, it's such a drug to be able to take behind homers 3-inch deep strike someone who can't overwatch you, mind blast a character, and then homers. Or if you're playing against me, apparently just roll 1s on both times that you try to do that, and the vortex just kills the librarian.
That could also happen. All right. Orcs are next. Orcs are the 5th best faction. 252 players. What a wild number.
Too many orcs. I don't like there being that many orcs in the meta.
8.8% meta representation.
We're getting close to Necrons right before the slates levels.
A 55.3% win rate. 9 GT wins, which is the most of any faction since the slate dropped. 32 top 4s, 63 top 10s, and a 1.83 over rep, which is the 2nd best over rep currently in the game. With that many players, that's just a problem.
They're making
Sorry, folks.
Like 15% of top 4s right now. Like 1 in 6 top 4s is an orc, despite them making up like 1 in 11, 1 in 12 players.
Yeah, they have 20 more top 10s than the next closest person in top 10s.
16 more. Oh, top 10s. I was looking at top 4s.
Top 10s. Top 4s, they have double, which is 16 more because they have 32. That's double the closest competitor in the number of top 4s.
Which is
It's a lot.
Necrons.
I'm
I would
gonna
take
be
Index Eldar
honest.
back over this shit.
See, the problem is orcs actually, I don't think, are that strong. Why haven't the stats on the website been updated? They'll be updated hopefully this evening.
So I think the problem is
Don't
that there are
spoil it before the
two
show.
different versions of like orc lists, and they require two different kind of toolkits to deal with. And if you're ready for bully boys and you're not ready for like green tide, I think you're in trouble.
So what you're saying is all I got to take is 3 Exalted Sorcerers on disc, and I'm good into both.
Is that true?
Probably.
That's been my experience so far, actually.
I hope you don't triple ones. next time.
where I just go and they say, "Oh, you're playing Green Tide. You put 60 boys on your line. All 3 of them now move 3 inches."
Right. No, Noah's got a good point, which is Warhorde is also good. I'm sorry.
It's not as predominant, but it is solid. Dread Mob and the Big Hunt are dragging the win rate of orcs down by a not inconsiderable amount.
What is the subfaction win rate if you've got that in front of you for our best 3?
Fact. So I will look at basically since it came out, because the nice thing is they were smart and they renamed everything, so I can actually just filter that. Of the 252 players that we were just talking about, 149 of them have been playing Bully Boys, and they have averaged a 58.8% win rate.
And how many of the GT wins are in?
That I don't have on here, but I can tell you. I can look that up, and I will tell you that after these numbers.
Sounds good.
The Big Hunt, 11 players and a 36.6% win rate. Dread Mob, 30 players and a 37.8% win rate. We then have Green Tide, 35 players and a 59.5% win rate. Cult of Speed, 4 players, 54.8. It's only 4 players, not real.
The best time.
I mean, yes, they are. 18 Def Coptas. Warhorde, 23 players and a 53.5% win rate. So the ones that we highlighted are all doing pretty well. Cult of Speed, there hasn't really been enough people who played it to have an idea. The Big Hunt and Dread Mob are definitely struggling. Dread Mob, I am 100% convinced is just brought down by the fact that half the Dread Mob players just want to bring a Stompa. And while fun isn't good.
The only orc players I respect, to be honest.
They are the true orc players. Sorry, Ben.
Yeah, everybody else needs to be on their level and win rate.
While we pull out the stats, when we're talking about Bully Boys and Green Tide, like what are the things that you want to watch out for in those 2 matchups specifically? Ines.
Against Bully Boys, you're watching out for the WA. I think it's a fairly obvious, like, you want to make sure that they're not getting a massive value out of both of their WAs. You can usually handle 1 good WA turn. Handling 2 is difficult. So you need to be able to set up to move block and force them to use the first one in the disadvantaged position, or have them use the first one and then kind of absorb it and then like scatter is usually the traditional approach that I've been taking. Take the first one, fight them on their terms, and then charge away, go and charge all the small stuff, deal with the things, get away from the mega knobs, let them use their second turn, and then, kind of waste it, and then come back in and deal with them afterwards. And that's been fairly successful. The alternative is to just slow and grind away at them, or play an army that can just kill through them like Chaos Space Marines, which is what I've been doing for like the other half of this, which is great fun. If you play a brand new Lord of Skulls, your Lord of Skulls will kill in Sulfur's Warpack, will kill a Mega Knob squad through the Field Pain if you are if you're rolling average. So just do that, guys. It's hilarious. Every army can do this, right?
What world is it we in that we are legitimately talking about Khorne Lord of Skulls being good again?
Hey, look, man, they made it the Kool-Aid Man, and that's all it apparently.
The Kool-Aid Man is very fun to do with that.
It's also, for what it's worth, smaller than a Land Raider in terms of footprint. So
ever so slightly, yes.
Yes, it's smaller in both dimensions that matter, and frankly, that's it's not like height matters in 40k very much. So,
I have the answer on.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, go for Green Tide. Green Tide, I'll answer this one because I played into it enough to have a pretty good idea. Green Tide, the main thing that you have to watch out for, so they only get the single wall. Bully Boys get 2 walls, so they can actually use one for like defensive staging and then a second one to actually connect with you.
Bully Boys
They
get
can.
5 turns of half wall. They get 3.5. They get 3.5 walls.
Sure, but they get the invuln, but they don't get the advanced charge, and they don't get any of the other bonuses that like their war bosses and whatnot would get from there being a wall. So Green Tide gets the single wall, but everything and all the boys in their army have a 5-up invuln. And so long as there are 10 or more models in their unit, they reroll saves of 1. So you stack even just that on its own reduces the incoming damage by like 45%.
It's 38.3. But
Sorry, 38. I'm thinking 45 is the remaining if you also add in the Feel No Pain. And you stack a Pain Boy onto there, and a 20-man unit of boys has like I think it's 40 effective wounds plus the character wounds.
Too many.
It's T5. They're annoying. And then the thing about them that tends to catch a lot of people off guard, you can play around it, but they have a Blood Surge move. It's a strat that they have to play when they're targeted. And then after the resolution, they still have 10 or more models, they go 6 inches. If they're less than that, they go D6. And they can finish an engagement range like pretty much every other Surge move. So it's very difficult to push them off of objectives. If they sit on the edge of the objective and you try to charge them or you try to shoot them off an objective, they kind of go, and we're touching you. You can't shoot me anymore. So, 20 shots on 3s, winning on 4s. That sounds just about right.
90 shots.
Yeah, and that's hitting on 3s, wounding on 4s. This is why I like my flamers. That 10-man arm and brick that just goes.
I like Vindicators. They solve a lot of these problems.
Vindicators do. Forge Fiends actually solve this problem really well.
Forge Fiends are terrible for other reasons. Took a Forge Fiend to the ITT this weekend, and it was the disappointment of the century.
So that's the biggest thing. Green Tide. And this is where the dichotomy exists: is that Green Tide is a horde build, Bully Boys is an elite build, and so having answers to both of those can be a challenge for some armies. The thing that both of them have in common is that they are melee pressure builds. They just do it in a different way. Bully Boys, they suffer a lot from things like minuses to hit stacking or minus attacks, which a few things have. Good example of that is the Winged Hive Tyrant. Paroxysm, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, still don't run that guy, but yeah.
No, but it was cute, and it did come up in the Dallas Open Finals, where it looked at a unit of Meganobs that was outside of the wall and said, "You have 1 attack each."
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
And then the next turn failed it and mortal wounded himself so that he was in grenade range of death.
Yeah, that sounds more like a hive.
It happens. That seems accurate.
Yeah, it's very much that motive.
I love psychic abilities that have fail states. It really just feels cool, especially since you can't command reroll them or anything. It's really just like this day would be so much better if it was just 20 points more expensive and worked. But I'm glad I have a fail state.
Yeah. So being able to pick the characters out of both of those armies helps a lot. The War Boss and Mega Armor is annoyingly tough to kill with a 2-up, 5-up, and a 4-up Feel No Pain in the wall. But Pain Boys and regular War Bosses are significantly easier to kill. Still annoying, but if you have precision or ability to, either in ranged or in the ability to do it in melee, having to do a double activation into a unit of boys where one picks up the Pain Boy and then the other unit just rips through the squad helps a lot.
So the main thing, guys, play Deathwatch. You can take crits get precision, and you'll smash all the Bully Boys and Green Tide in your area.
Army that gets that weird thing.
That's terrible.
That's right, Invasion Fleet, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, and then we're going to talk about a few other factions real quick.
So before we go there, I do have the answer. So of the 9 GTs that have been won, my hands being backwards here messes with my head. How many have been won by Bully Boys?
7.
6. And then
6.
6 of the 9 have been won by Bully Boys, and then 1 each for Dread Mob, Warhorde, and Green Tide.
Meganobs might be stupid.
Meganobs might be a bit much right now, yeah. We have not talked about World Leaders, Chun. We will, though.
I will in a moment. Don't worry. We're going to go through the top 10, and World Leaders are in the top 10. Next up is Sisters of Battle, which was one of the factions that we said was probably going to do well. They had a 53.3% win rate, unevent win, 9 top 4s, and 22 top 10s for a 1.3 over rep. They have only made up 3.5% of the meta. So
It's
they're
one of the
doing
highest
okay.
points that they've been at in the last year, though, in terms of meta representation.
Yep. And they are doing actually very solidly well. One event win is like not great. 9 top 4s, though, is pretty good. Just means they're kind of not sealing the deal. They're just outside of kind of that upper tier of top 4 performing factions at the moment, which is fine. Next is Necrons, who had 219 players and a 7.7% meta representation, which is still very high.
Still very
53.2%.
much alive.
Yeah, still very alive. 53.2% win rate, 3 event wins, 16 top 4s, 43 top 10s, and a 1.05 for overrep. They're the closest faction to orcs in top 4s and top 10s.
But they're also such a high play rate. Those numbers are actually right about where they should be at.
Yeah, they're very close to balanced at this point. Although some of that may be that it doesn't seem like they have great matchups into orcs to me personally. Like, I don't know, man. I look at that matchup and I'm like, this seems awful.
So Canoptic cannot aggressively exist on the midfield against Bully Boys.
Yep.
No.
All right. World Leaders is next. 132 players, 4.6% of the meta, a 51.3% win rate, 3 event wins, 10 top 4s, 26 top 10s for a 1.09. Perfectly balanced. I think World Leaders are just fine. I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say about them.
No, they seem fine.
Yeah.
They won.
World Leaders do not need 45 points to have a 50% win rate.
Give them like make Angron like 400 just to mess with them further.
No, because they get a full squad of Jackals.
Oh no, they already do that.
No, for 75 points, they would get a squad of Jackals if you give them 20 points.
Yeah, 15.
So
He's only 415.
You need to give them 10, so that you need to give them 5, so it's 60, which is exactly before you get a score spawn.
So what we'll do,
that's the platonic ideal.
We'll make Exalted 1 point more per model, so they're no longer increments of 5, and we'll make Angron 420.
All right, we're going to stop this, and I'm going to move on to the next placed faction. Blood Angels are Raid Underworld leaders. 125 players, 4.4% of the meta, a 51.1% win rate. So just under them by 0.1% of a win rate. 2 event wins, 12 top 4s, 26 top 10s, and a 1.38 for overrep. So doing a little bit better into top 4s, not quite closing as well. Basically identical, though, otherwise to World Leaders.
Two fast, hard-hitting melee armies are both doing well.
Yep. Just not the best of the current slew of factions. And then rounding out the top 10, in 10th place, Chaos Demons. 93 players, 3.3% of the meta, a 51.1% win rate, 2 event wins, 5 top 4s, 14 top 10s, and a 0.77 for overrep.
A bit weak on the top 4s. Aside from that, they're in a fine spot.
I wasn't really expecting to see Chaos Demons rounding out the top 10, but there they are, rounding
They
it
got
out.
no changes in the slate because it was them, Imperial Knights, Chaos Knights, and a few others that basically went untouched. Drukari as well.
Yeah, that sounds
But
right.
Demons were one of the ones that, despite that,
Perfectly
have now.
balanced.
Yeah. I don't know what to say.
They're exactly where they should be, right in the middle with everybody forgetting about them.
I will say one of the nicer things about this has been that we've kind of seen a little bit of everything kind of spread out a little bit more since the data slate. I mean, 9 event wins over the last month when we haven't had a ton of events being.
Well, it's 49 events.
Orcs.
So,
yeah, so it's not like
1 in 5, 1 in 6.
5 are orcs. Yep.
Like that's not, given that they make up like almost 10%. It's still twice as high as it should be. But it's not as bad as, when Eldari had won half of the events for the first 3 months of the edition.
It's not as bad, but it's still bad, guys.
Oh,
it's okay
it definitely needs adjusting. I won't disagree with that. No one enjoys playing into Bully Boys right now.
Green
Tide, on the other hand, is fun.
Yeah. The end of that thought
reverse
process
that
is basically
personally,
that I don't think Green Tide's ever going to be as high as Bully Boys just because people hate playing Horde armies more so than anything else in their lives. Most people just can't push 120 to 150 models across the board and feel good about it the whole time.
It's also I hate how long their movement phases take. Like, come on, man, come on, hurry up! I got games to finish.
Put them on a clock; they're fine.
Yeah, but that's still time out of my life. I'm not getting
Just-
that time back.
Table
Just
them
to cause-
faster than Innis.
I'm trying.
Just to cause Jeremy pain, what is the bottom performing faction?
Oh, it's Dark
And
Angels. There's
it's
no
Dark
fucking question. I'm not actually even surprised about this. Like the Storm Raven build is the only build of theirs that does anything. And if you take that out, their win rate
And
plummets.
there's also only like 2 people playing that still.
One now, because I'm not playing it right now.
So we do
Well, I
have
was never
3 event
playing
wins in that
before, Jeremy.
faction, and 5 top 4s and 11 top 10s. So they're actually just right under where they should be for overrep.
The opposite
The
of the
faction
Demons,
has
where
one
it-
build.
like 41.8 isn't that low. And when you look at like 400 games, I can't do the math quickly in my head, but I think if you push up their game win, their wins by like 10 or 15, then they come close to that 45. So I don't think it's that bad.
They definitely just have the one build though, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, like if I look at the Dark Angels breakdown right now, it actually hurts a lot. Iron Storm has a 52% win rate for Dark Angels. It is the most common faction and most common build for that faction. And then everything else, actually no, Firestorm with 5 players has a 52% win rate. Everything else is below 40.
Maybe Ironstorm is the only good detachment in.
I mean, right above them is generic Space Marines,
Wow,
who don't have any
maybe
GT
Iron Storm
wins.
isn't the only good detachment.
Yeah, and a 0.66 overrep and a 42.3% win rate. And then right above them is Adeptus Mechanicus, who do have the lowest player count outside of Deathwatch, with 29 players and a 1% meta representation and a 42.4, and also no event wins. And then right above them is Custodes. Sorry, Custodes. 3.3% meta representation and a 43.7% win rate. And really just 3 top 4s and 10 top 10s to their name. So a 0.46 for overrep, which isn't great. And then we have Chaos Knights to round out the bottom 5. 91 players, a 43.9% win rate, and 1 top 4 and 11 top 10s for a 0.16 overrep.
Ow.
Which is not great. I mean, them and regular Imperial Knights are kind of like right there together or no, that's Leagues of Votann. I thought that was Knights.
No, Imperial
Purple
Knights have
Wall
actually like won an event and had 4 top 4s. They're not doing horribly.
It's actually Leagues of Votann who have that 0.17 overrep despite winning an event.
That one's
and
very
having
funny.
a
They've
reasonable
won
win
an
rate
event. They have the same single top 4, which was also the winner of that event.
and 10 top 10s
On
on
a
a 46
win rate. So
Yeah, they're sitting fine. It's fine. And then Deathwatch, who I didn't really want to talk about, but I did talk about, is that they have 9. Oh, the overrep stat, just for Austin's purposes, is it's essentially a ratio for how well factions are getting into the top 4. So if a faction had a 1 for overrep, they'd have 15% meta representation and make up 15% of the top 4s. If they had twice or an overrep of 2, which means they were twice as represented, they'd have like 30% of the top 4s while making up 15% of the meta.
yeah, it's a ratio between the player population and their population in the top 4 of events. So the idea of how likely a faction is to podium as opposed to other factions. 1 is perfect. We found that once you go above 1.5, it usually indicates there's an issue with a faction. Breaking 2 is usually only happens when an army generally, like, desperately needs
Breaking
addressing.
7 is when the Harlequins.
Don't remind me.
Yep.
Fucking pain.
And then just because everybody likes to talk about Eldar, we're going to talk about Eldar for a second. Eldar are in 18th, 131 players, 4.6% of the meta, 46.5% win rate, no event wins, 6 top 4s, 21 top 10s for a 0.66 overrep.
They're fine.
Maybe Eldar are just bad.
And also could be possible. They could just be bad at this point. And then there's Deathwatch, who have 9 players and just don't have anything going on. I'm sorry,
They're not
guys.
real.
I'm
We
sorry.
ignore them.
I'm sorry.
If you
to-
can't hit the
Look,
10-player threshold that we use on a weekly basis over a 4-week spread, they don't exist.
We have to stop pretending, guys, that Deathwatch is a real faction at this point, and we have to start coming to acceptance that maybe Deathwatch is no longer real. and is not a faction anymore.
Maybe the July slate will help them.
Maybe
Maybe.
we all collectively deluded ourselves into thinking Death Watch was real. I certainly know some teams did at WTC, but
Oh,
wow, I like how I didn't even have to mention you guys, and you took that as an attack on yourself, Jeremy. What
everyone who
self-esteem
wasn't
you
at
have,
Pyra fell for that problem.
except Spain.
All right.
They have other problems.
Toronto played Blood Angels, man. It was so far
And
ahead of
then-
us all.
Guard players are the other people we'll talk about real quick just because they're right there as well. In 19th place, 136 players, 4.8% of the meta, 46.5% win rate. Also, no event wins, 6 top 4s, and 21 top 10s for a 0.64 over reps.
Seems fine to me.
It is what it is. That's kind of it for placements. Drakari's sole GT win is just Scary, who was in chat just a little bit ago. So it's good. Congratulations, Scary.
Hell yeah, Scary.
They have a 50.6% win rate. I'm just going to remove Scary from the stats. We're just going to delete him. Just delete him wholesale from
No!
the stats. Scary, you're not allowed to be in the stats anymore. Sorry. You're
Scary,
breaking
yeah.
breaking it.
We've got the Scary Lennon filter, right? And just removes the best player.
To
of
be
the given
fair, neither of them play in that many events. Like,
It's true.
over the 4
Mhm.
weeks, Drukari have played 324 games. 5 of those
Shush.
are Scary.
Look, you can let me have my delusion. And it's
I mean, you
fine.
could
They have
remove the
a-
one win in the one top 4, and then they drop to like a 1.3 over rep.
It's
which
still pretty
they're
decent.
actually probably just fine,
Yeah, they are.
which is fine.
Now, if you told
Um,
Scary he couldn't tell people how to play Drukari anymore, then we might have a problem.
This is true.
Or Dracarys win rate might go up a bunch. Like we have no way to know.
Bring more
I don't know,
chain
maybe-
swords.
Bring more chain swords. We can talk real quick about Nids, Hampus, Jansen in chat. Tier Nids are just outside the bottom 5. 115 players, they're 6th. 4.4% of the meta, a 44.8% win rate, 2 event wins, 7 top 4s, 15 top 10s for a 0.88 over rep, so just under the window
event wins.
essentially.
Yeah.
2 event wins.
You want to know what they were with?
I know one of them was Eric, which doesn't count.
Were they?
They're gonna strip Eric out. I don't think that is Eric. I think that G2 was too small. Unless
don't
that
think it
was, a
was
different-
Eric.
It
Yeah.
might have been.
The 2 Tyranid. Oh, yeah, of course. One is Sam
They
Pope,
won
who won Dallas.
Dallas.
Oh,
Yeah.
And the other one is Jinkito. I don't have a last name because it was played on mini headquarters. It was one of the French War Games Cups.
Eric was so
opens.
excited, and his GT wasn't even big enough. Ridiculous.
I mean, there wasn't a GT then.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just some random 2-day RTT.
Exactly. I was solid. He thought I was going to talk about it.
So yeah, it's really Tyranids have problems. Let's just put it that way. They have problems in a lot of
pretty good
Doing
spots.
mildly.
fine.
They're doing fine. They've just been in the bottom 5 for like the last 3
But
months.
The bottom 5 isn't
They're
that bad.
ridiculously.
True. We have seen kind of over this edition, outside of like the very beginning of this edition, everything has kind of been steadily shoved towards the middle. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but it has definitely gotten better from a balance
work
perspective
to be
since
done.
then.
But they've been doing
Although
a good job of pulling it all in.
I was told that the best faction to learn the game was Tyranids, and it was a trap. I mean, they participate in all phases and have a diverse set of like unit profiles, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe Crusher Stampede will be good one day.
Maybe. I mean, it was good at a point. It was good. I've got some Dimacharons in storage that say that it was good at one point.
Just-
Just play them as Norns. I'm sure Norns are great.
Yeah, once they come down another 80 points.
150 point Norn? Yes, please.
Dude, it's bold. Do you think they're 230 right now?
How much are they?
They're 275 and 290.
Oh, okay.
Norms have been too expensive for a very long time. It was very funny when they were pointed. They're still more expensive than Catan.
295 would be the same price as Nightbreaker.
Yeah.
So the Northern Simulator is 5 points cheaper than the Nightbringer.
Just putting it out there. Just
It out
putting
season.
there. It does.
On his chosen objective, it
No,
does.
they're 5. They're 5.
Oh, they are 5.
They're
Okay.
base. They're not that bad.
Whoa.
It's pretty
Look, I don't
small.
see them in
Um,
lists that often, so
We've never lost a game with one, but
All right.
team events
We're
are
gonna
fake. So
let's transition out. We spent a long time kind of talking about this. I think the only real big surprise though for us is that Space Wolves are the number 1 faction. I think for the most part, everything else kind of makes sense with what we were predicting at the beginning, when the data slate dropped and kind of when the codexes have released for orcs and stuff like that.
Were Custodes the only thing holding Space Wolves back before?
I think
It might be.
Necrons are as well. I think Necrons is genuinely quite a tough matchup for them. The damage output just doesn't match up super well into them. Max Strength 5 into Wraiths is awful. But in general, that matchup's a little bit easier now.
And the Wraiths do clap them back because they're Strength 6 themselves. They basically tie an OC because Wraiths are OC2, Wolves are OC2. Yeah, I could kind of see that.
Yep. Oh, I guess we didn't talk about Tau, who also got a book. But
actually,
that data is mixed between the two of them. Sorry, we'll talk about the Tau Codex real quick. Somebody's in our chat. Tau over the month.
Here, I can pull up
pull up our new codex.
Just their codex numbers. So since the codex have come out, Tau, I don't have player numbers here, but they've played 562 games, so you can interpolate from that. So it's about 100 players, 120 players ish. They have had a 45.9% win rate. They have won 250 games, they have lost 296, and they have drawn 16 times.
Does that have their GT win in it?
I think their GT win was actually before.
Their win rate has dropped like half.
Let me check real quick on that one. I did have my faction, my event wins tab open.
Lower than.
Let's just look at the Tau. I love that at the top of my thing. It's always Kevin Zollinger from Germany or Austria. I can't remember which one he's from. I think he's from Austria.
Yes.
Tau.
He is Austrian, yes.
No. So the one the one GT win they have in our set was Daniele De Gemini. I think he's the Team Italy captain, or was their captain for a little while.
No, Peter is their team captain at the moment, but he is one of the team. He's one of their players.
Okay, I thought Daniele their captain last year.
Maybe, don't hold me to that.
Anyways, he won the Conquest Italia showdown with old Kayun, which was the basically last hurrah of that codex. Grundy has been too busy playing Kroot
and playing teams.
That too, but mainly Kroot.
He did go 4-1 though with Kroot.
And he went.
I think he went 4-1 twice.
2-0-3 this weekend. 2 wins, 3 draws. Good old Kroot.
Good old Kroot. Pulling draws.
All right. I'm actually now curious. Let's go.
It's Kroot Tide. Bird Tide?
Player look up. Kyle Grundy.
DNA Tide? I don't know, man.
I don't know. Like Carnagale? I don't have a good word for it.
Carnagale.
So it was just at Carnage. He went 4-1 with them.
Okay.
And that was with the Kroot detachment, which I loved seeing.
I'm going to be very honest, is that I'm so confused that we might just have to like edit in Anthony's little bit from last week's episode where he's confused about how Fast Gun is no longer good when Fast Gun was good
bad.
Before. But
that was the greatest clip from our show in the last little while. Kroot Hunting Pack is also the best winning detachment for them. There have been 6 players, and they've averaged a 60.9% win rate.
The bird cage. Thank you, probably Coco. The bird cage.
That's Zangor, though. We can't. That's not how that.
No, that's Goatman.
That's
the goat cage.
But
the goat pen.
No. They're winged goats. Because they don't have talons, they have hooves.
So they're goats. They're also beast men who are goats.
I regret bringing up the etymology of the different jails.
I mean, technically, Tau aren't fish either because they also have hooves and are therefore cows.
But what are they? Cowfish?
They're cowfish. Yeah.
So they're manatees.
Yeah, they're manatees.
You could call it Vorjail, but I feel like we might get in trouble or demonetized.
We're not doing that. No, we're not. No. Don't Google that, people. Stay away from it. Don't do it. This is your only warning. All right. We're going to move on. Let's do 10 minutes of wishes for new codexes and things. And
let's not do that. Let's do the plugs and then the questions so I can go to bed at a human time.
Okay, let's do that then. We're going to skip everything else that we talked about doing because we actually stretched out that stat section into over an hour.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us so far for episode 93 of Stat Check. This has been 1 month in Meta Top Dogs. If you're in a position to and you would like to support us a little bit more, you can check out patreon.com/statcheck. For $5 a month, you can get access to a bunch of awesome stuff, like discussion with some of the best players in the world, insight into the WTC backstage process, the new Vibe Check League, which Jeremy will be launching in the next week or so, I want to say.
So Vibe Check, I'm going to interrupt you this right now. Signups are live. You have 2 days to sign up from basically 2 days and 4 hours from this right now as I'm speaking. The time is on the actual thing. The link is in the Stat Check Discord. I put it at 100 players, but we'll expand if we need to. We're going to do 5, maybe 6 rounds, which should hopefully take us to basically the end of this meta, based on the next slate being sometime in July. And yeah, we'll do the usual. We're going to have some raffle prizes from the Red Dragon in terms of store credit, and we'll have some prizes for the top placing players. I also have placed a challenge. If anyone wants to play as Imperial Agents as your main faction and win at least 2 games, then there might be something special for you.
Can I do that?
Collusion?
I mean, it's not collusion. It's random pairings. But I won't do it. Don't worry about it.
I mean, it's more like, can we win our own prizes? That seems dodgy. Let's not do that.
That's fair. I just kind of wanted to win. I don't know. No, I'm kidding.
So yeah, that's patreon.com/statcheck. Vibe Check Leagues are a great fun time, really good for getting to interact with a bunch of awesome 40k players. If you want to support us in a smaller way, you can check out youtube.com/statcheck. Interaction is always super favorable for us. Likes, comments, subscriptions, hitting the bell button, all the other things that all the YouTubers say that still confuses me as being a thing that I have to do every week. You can also find all of our other shows there. Primarily at the moment, you'll find End of the Matrix, who just did their episode on ITT, doing the preview to the previous show. I assume they'll have a breakdown show on that coming in the next couple of weeks. We've also got Champions of 40k and Take All Comers, and then we have X1, who are currently on hiatus until around about the WTC. So do check all of those out. They are live at the various times in their shows. Like, I'm never going to remember them all, unfortunately, and it's not written down on my notes, so it doesn't exist. As for our sponsors, you can check out red-dragon.ca. It's a gaming store in Canada, which is Jeremy's local. There's a special discount code for patrons, which is available in the Patreon. So go and sign up for that if that's a thing that appeals to you. They'll ship worldwide, basically anywhere. They've also got our new dice and objective markers up for sale now. You can see the Chaos Knight Hogshead Stat Check logo dice and all that good stuff that we will hopefully have some examples of on the show soon. You can also check out Will and Yutani. They're the primary makers of the WC Terrain. You can find a discount code, which I believe is StatCheck5, in the comment in the description below. And you can check out Saltar Games on Etsy, who do markers, tokens, widgets, measuring gauges. I'm going to be getting some custom ones done up for an army that I'm going to be moving into, which I'm looking forward to doing. So I will hopefully show some of those off soon. And there's a code StatCheck15 to get it off there. And we have a new sponsor who Jeremy is going to talk about just now.
Yeah. So Anthony from J15 Games. Some of you may have seen the stuff that they produced back during the Cali Cup season or Cali Cup event. They do a lot of really nice laser cut stuff. They have a really nice I was gonna say blood tithe, because that's not a thing anymore. Corn Blessings tracker for World Eaters. They also do US Open style terrain, pre-painted and just regular MDF, as well as some nice frosted acrylics. They've partnered with us. We've given all you have to do is use the code StatCheck, all caps. It's in the description below on their Etsy store, and you get 10% off anything in their store. Yeah, they do some amazing stuff. At the moment, they currently only ship to the United States, but we're in talks with them about opening that up a little bit, mainly because a bunch of us up in Canada want those sets because they are some gorgeous terrain sets.
For UK people, I might look at getting like a bunch of stuff done and then bringing it back over with me as well when I go over to Dallas for the Champions Cup. So we can potentially, I'll probably open that up to patrons more than anybody else because that'll be a ton of work, but we'll have a look at that as well. All right, I think that's everything I have on the plugs. Shall we move into show questions?
Show questions.
As
time.
always, there are 2 ways to get your question guaranteed at the answer on the show. One is to be a patron and to ask it in the show question thread every week. That's one of the primary benefits of being a patron, is you get to do that. The other one is to ask a question that's super good in the chat or fire over as a super chat, where we will definitely make sure we answer as well. So if you don't want to support us on Patreon, but you are able to support us on YouTube, that's the other way you can do it. So, yeah. Jeremy, take us away. Or Nathan, either or. I really don't mind.
I can kick us off.
I got it.
All right. I will focus on putting them in chat.
All right. Logan asks, with most of the these questions so long. With most of the advance and shoot detachments doing fine but not amazing, will Raiders be the first fast gun detachment to break out into the spotlight?
I mean, like Firestorm, like top 8 at LBO and stuff, guys. Like, let's not go as far as saying that fast shoot has been bad or is even remotely close to bad right now.
Yeah, fast shooting is good. The challenge always with fast shooting is you usually need something to back it up, or you will crumple.
Second question from Logan is, how does a player overcome years of bias and habit when a new codex drops that's radically different? For example, Tau players struggling with news without cyclinks.
About fucking time is what I'll have to say.
Play more.
I think that's the answer. You play more. You look at what's been doing well. You realize that Tetras and Sibs were a crutch that you never should have been using in the first place, and take more Riptides. The Triptide comes for everyone.
What I want to say is that it's
still
okay to take a minute to complain about something drastically changing with your book. That's fine. Like, go through your grief cycle, but you do at the end of the day just have to kind of step out of your box and try new things.
Eventually, we all have to suck it up.
Yep. And then the third and fourth question, because there are so many players that do casual or narrative style games while others do competitive, how does GW balance to satisfy both groups enough to maintain business? What is more important, raw mechanical balance of a rule that satisfies a more competitive crowd, or a thematic feel of a rule, such as large models that tower over buildings and ruins getting line of sight on enemy units?
Towering is bad, so it's good that it's gone.
I don't think we know enough about how GW balances the game in order to answer that question, but you have to balance around both. Like, you can't just balance for competitive play, because that's not how their player base works. The player base for competitive 40K is like, I think, 10% aggressively of their players.
Yeah, I'll add as well that you can do it through different mechanics. I mean, as an example, the data slates are only for matched play.
Yep.
You don't have to use them. I strongly recommend you do use them in running Crusade events or anything like that, because things just break otherwise. No one likes playing at that kind of like power level. Crusade is an area where they can add a lot more flavor to the game. It's something that we had a bit of a discussion on the Goonhammer side of things about how they could do Crusade better. There are definitely some things that are lacking, and also Crusade does suffer from the needless spreadsheet tracking while you build your dude's story. So I think that that's kind of the focus, is that like you have the main missions, but then you have, for example, right now you have the Leviathan Tournament Companion. There's like, play these missions in this combination. This is what we've supported. This is the terrain that we've designed for. Whereas Crusade has its own entire mission set. So you can separate those while still using the same core rules for both sides. The challenge, I think, here is that there has definitely been a perception over the last couple of years that there's been more focus on the competitive side of 40K than on the narrative side of 40K. And really good narrative events are a lot of fun, but they're much more rare, partly because they require a lot more work to set up.
I do think that GW runs a really good narrative event, though.
Yes.
Like, I've seen pictures from the narrative, like grand narrative event that they run at the same time as the Worlds event. And that looks amazing. There are people in like full costumes and regalia and stuff like that, and it looks like they have a blast.
Yeah, those narratives are there. It's actually really funny because I'm friends with a bunch of the guys now who were in the grand narrative through my work at the US Opens. And at one point at Worlds, when they were running the grand narrative, I tried to talk to one of them and they were just stuck in character, but they had adopted that character. I think one was a Katakan jungle fighter for the weekend, and he was just a jungle fighter. So nice. People love being able to role play. People love being able to take it to that, to a sometimes silly, but also just really fun extreme. So you can approach both. It just, the US events team does a really good job running narratives, but I don't know anyone else in GW that's doing that right now.
All right, the next question is from Cameron, which is, what is the most comical / BS synergy or rules interaction to make a list with to troll friends?
Well, this is a funny one because it actually came up recently. If your buddies really like playing Bully Boys right now, play Death Guard into them with as many Nurglings as you possibly can fit, and then put Plague Marines in front of them and say, charge me. And take the weapon skill contagion, so they now hit you on 6s.
We're going to go to the next question.
And this is just looking at me like, what are you doing?
PS asks, or Pius, how should one approach getting paired into an unfamiliar army?
Ask as many questions as you can and try to synthesize the information. You're going to have to make a game plan on the fly. You got to work with what you got. Fall back on the things you know. Play your game plan as consistently as you can. The better you know your list, the easier it is to adapt to new information.
Yep. Make sure that you have a thorough list of questions to ask ahead of time. There's quite a few of those floating around of like pre-game questions to ask to help that will help you understand what your opponent's army can do, and then you can hopefully from there come up with a game plan on the fly.
If you got to know, though, I would suggest like better Overwatch, reactive moves, and like fall back and do stuff is usually,
and any kind of out of
advance and do
sequence
stuff
shit.
are usually the big ones. There's not as much out of sequence stuff anymore. We don't really have like out of sequence shooting and things like that anymore. Though you used to be a lot of what you asked.
And then you
about.
play
Like,
into
there's a little bit of,
Ironstorm, you bring
reactive, but-
a Vindicator below half and suddenly go, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, don't do that.
Right. Second question from Pius is, Jeremy, how are you?
I'm fine.
All right.
Like
next,
I was exhausted after Dallas, but that was just because of the bullshit flight. Aside from that, it was a wonderful time. The only thing that I regret about that weekend is I didn't get a chance to do an AOS 4 demo.
Dan F, whose question is up, is how many Warp Talons is too many Warp Talons?
31.
I agree. 31 is the too many point.
Can't
I
take
think
them.
actually 20 to 25 is probably like the right number, but I don't know, man.
I think 30 is probably too many. 20 or 25. 20, I think, is the right number, but
You could probably
with
make
how cheap
25
they are right now, I would probably just take 30.
I like
Blair
20.
at-
I think 20 is probably about where I would cap at. It becomes quite awkward for the second and third squad because you're just kind of raw charging nines, and that could be a little crap. If you
Yeah,
use them
that's
for that.
fair.
So where it's like if you miss it with a 5-man, you don't really mind it so much. When you're spending 220 points on something that activates, at that point, 28 and 100, 28 and 100 times it comes down at 1 and 4. You have the one squad you're rapid ingressing, you're spending CP on that, and then two squads that are like replacement squads. But do you really need to spend 44 points on replacement squads in case your ingress squad gets, screwed over? I'm starting to feel like maybe you could just run other things and be happier for it.
Makes sense.
Blair asks, what changes would need to be made for Big Boy Time to be viable for Chaos Knights? More importantly, is the second part of this question, which is how much money needs to be thrown at GW to bring back
No.
the Blessings of the Dark Master as an enhancement? They clearly did not get their own memo about curbing rerolls. How do you make Big Boy Time viable, though?
I just don't think you do. Not without making it oppressive.
I think it's
fair.
really hard to do well. Big Knights and Imperial Knights kind of work.
Ignite should probably have a 2-up save. That's kind of the only one that I'm like a little.
I mean, the
weird about
Tyrants
still.
do.
But the Tyrants do, and that's cool for them. But they also have kind of the worst guns and the least flexibility and
But
poor
Harpoon.
enhancements. Yep.
Maybe you give the Tyrants a 1-up save base.
Yeah, just never forget that a Knight Castellan / Knight Tyrant with that gun has a Redemptor gun with +2 shots. That's its primary armament.
No, and then they don't have melee.
No, and they're 600 points.
I think both those books just need reimaginings and codexes at this point. And they need something to they need a fundamental change in how they
The
operate.
challenge always with both knights is that when they're good, they're way too good.
Yeah.
Because of the skew that they present, people
Or
are like,
so easy to build around that it doesn't matter that they're good.
All right. The second question, or next question from Willow: what Canadian events would you recommend I try and attend this year and next? I'm looking to improve and make the next step, but don't really enjoy TTS. Is that something I just have to get over?
it depends where in Canada you're located, because that's kind of like asking what American events should you attend. I'm assuming that you're located somewhere in the Quebec-Windsor corridor, because that's where half of our population is. If you are, then the events that I would try to check out would be TGX in Toronto is a fairly solid event. That's being run July 13th and 14th, I believe, in Toronto. You have Capital City Bloodbath in Ottawa, which is August 24th and 25th. New Brunswick. In that case, you should go check out Falcon, which is June 6th and 7th. So that's actually not too far, because I believe that is in Moncton. Might be a little bit further from there, but
right.
at the very least, it is out in the Maritimes. Aside from that, there isn't a huge bit. I would look into
Moncton.
Yeah, it's in Moncton. There is DM me. I'll put you in touch with Jonathan Betteridge, who is actually, you can also DM him. He's in the Team Canada Discord, because I've already seen that. Great, you're registered. But yeah, if you're flying places, Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto are where some of the best tournaments are held on this side of the continent. And then if you want to go on the west side, the major cities are pretty good. Saskatoon has a really good set of in the Saskatoon Vipers, where they run some really good events, both an amazing team event that I went to last year. You have some decent events in Alberta, but then you're also going to Texas North. So, and then British Columbia, it tends to be Wet Coast, a lot of the Heroes of the Mid-Table events. And then basically at that point, also, if you're out in the BC area, you may as well look at the rest of the Pacific Northwest and look at events that are happening in the Seattle and Portland areas. But what I would also recommend is that if you're interested in flying to events, check out some of the Northeastern American events. Brian Horton from Salt City, which is the first weekend or second weekend in August, it puts on a really good show. What are some other good ones? Nova's not horrible. Actually, it's a pretty decent event now.
You've got the Battle Preservation stuff in New York.
Yeah, Battle for Salvation is really good. There's a ton of options, and the community in the Discord will explain to you all of those. Okay, so you've been flying to the big three in America, so you know that. Okay, I would highly recommend Capital City Bloodbath here in Ottawa. It's a fun time. I'm very biased because it's in my hometown, but it is a super fun and tends to be a fairly competitive event. It being 2 weeks after WTC means that a good chunk of the local WTC team members will be there, and we'll be bringing very silly things that we learned in Belgium.
Next question is from Mark, which is, so last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, you mentioned Maryland doesn't have the best crabs. Being from Maryland myself, I was highly offended. So where actually are the best crabs, and how do you like to eat them? Any question other than with Old Bay is unacceptable. Unfortunately, the best crabs that I ever had were in China, and I don't know what kind of crabs those were. But I had just like whole crabs. Sorry, guys. That was the best crab. I know, Jeremy, get over it.
I can't. I just can't. I'm sure Maryland has fine crabs.
I don't know, man. I will agree that Southern crab boils are the best crab boils. All right, we need to speed up apparently because doesn't like how long we're taking. Tom H asks, what can one do about Zagrod?
Appeal to your local TO.
Yeah, so the answer right now is Zodgrod doesn't work. For anyone who's curious, Zodgrod gives his unit Scouts 9, but Scouts is very clearly described as being a normal move of up to X, which means that he can only go 6.
There you go. All right. Sean asks, my pet
write
theory
a polite but firm letter to the FAQ email for Games Workshop, and maybe they'll fix it.
I don't think this is a question. This isn't a question, Sean.
Cool. Move on.
Moving along.
All right. Adam asks, brief advice for playing into Grey Knights, both Triple Land Raider and Terminator variants, and Wolf Jail. We gave the Wolf Jail answer earlier, but how about tips for playing into Grey Knights real quick?
High, like AP 2 or 3 that can ignore cover is really good. I mean, Dread Knights, I guess the Triple Land Raider is really rough.
I would traditionally say hit them really hard and they tend to stay down. But that's kind of not really advice. It's more of just an observation.
It does work. Like Dread Knights are only T8.
Multiple units at the same time for Mr. Deimos purposes, because only one thing can move away. Land Raiders, you're just going to have to go through them the traditional way. There's Land Raider Redeemers are generally less durable in Grey Knights than they are in other factions, but it's not like significantly more. They're still just Land Raider Redeemers, and you can't even Vector Armoric attempt for some stupid reason. And their Tech Marines work differently to everybody else's for another some stupid reason.
Because they're Brotherhood Tech Marines.
Sure, man. I don't care if they were Sisterhood Tech Marines. It's still weird. All
right.
Don't get overwatched.
There you go. Screen goodly is actually good advice. Yes. Screen goodly. Learn how to screen the goodliest. Coco/Jack asks, seeing X factions, poor numbers, and having a completely different experience in the games I've been playing, how much of that do you think is down to people not having reps into that style of army / generally having no clue what they do? And how do you plan for people that are ready for such shenanigans? So I think there's like a different kind of question in here, which is like, how do you look at people's poor numbers and then compare them to your local? And sometimes your local will just be different. Some people will tell me that their local is full of like only Imperial Knights players winning all their RTTs and stuff like that. Sometimes you need to look at like variables that can be involved in those situations. And sometimes those are terrain based. Sometimes they are model based and like what people are bringing, because not everybody has access to diverse sets of minis, and
in your
sometimes
local
you
meta,
need
the best
specific
army
stuff
is
too.
going to be Yeah, in your local meta, the best army is whatever the best 3 players play, and it doesn't really matter how much more granular you get than that. You can try to overcome that by playing a better army yourself and getting to that level. But until you get to be a better player than them, you're probably going to lose to them regardless of what you're playing, unless there's a massive army mismatch.
Yep.
The meta as a whole, when we talk about the stat check meta or like data, it is referencing the global worldwide meta, and it tracks trends and averages and everything. It does not track individual experiences. It does not track individual tournaments in the same way. There is always nuance. There is always variety, and we aim to capture the overall picture. But there are hundreds of thousands of individual snapshots of where you are playing right now that will not reflect what we're saying. We give you information to go off of and trends to look at to try to make your own decisions. But ultimately, you have to decide for the people you're playing with and against.
Yep. I'll add to that the other thing that often comes up that people will miss out on is the numbers aren't that far off. Like a 45% win rate faction versus a 60% win rate faction, you're winning 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5. Your small sample of your own experience can fall within a very large bound, while someone else's can fall on the other end of that bound, and it averages out. So,
yeah. It also is worth it that we talked about it earlier, just find the right questions to ask and then ask those questions when you're playing something that's unfamiliar so that you can familiarize yourself at least generally with what an army can do. And then practice. You're just going to have to practice more as well. Right. Evan S. has 2 questions. The first one is, as an amateur player that started in 10th, I feel like I fell into a lot of noob traps that are now punishing me in games as I work towards getting better. Things such as relying on Overwatch, 9-inch deep strike charges to win the game, etc. Can you guys think of any similar traps to watch out for at the amateur skill level and will create bad habits in the future?
Yeah.
So
Changing your list every time you lose with it or every time you encounter a problem. Try adapting the tools that you have to better fit the situations, or figuring out how to overcome them with the tools you have, rather than feeling like you have to make it different every time. People are very quick to change the list because of it didn't feel good in this game or whatever. You will get a lot more benefit out of just trying to work around your limitations than trying to cover every eventuality. No list is perfect. No list does everything. Lists are good at some things and bad at others. Your job is to figure out how to make one thing do all the things you needed to do, getting multiple things out of a job, getting multiple jobs out of a unit. If all you're doing is constantly chasing the dragon of having the perfect list, it's not like leveling up a skill in RuneScape. You don't suddenly hit level 99 list building and you write the perfect list that nothing can ever lose to. You have to play to your out to play to your limitations, and you will never get there by just list writing. Play your list, and play a list. Stick with it until it stops working. But have it stop working for a reason, not just because you feel like it. You are not getting more out of making your list 1% better into one matchup than you are of playing a list that you are 10% more comfortable with, more familiar with, and understand the data sheets of, and can focus on the gameplay, not on is this unit doing its job.
Yep. And Jeremy, the second question really boils down to what is your pioneer strategy in Leagues of Votann? How do you use your pioneers?
Sit at 24 near a board edge so you can pick them up and drop them down. Your shotguns don't exist for the purposes of shooting until your opponent is almost dead. I made that mistake a lot early on because that extra 6 shots from the shotguns is nice to have, but the reality is sit at 24 so that they don't hit you and pop off the board edge and come back on in awkward spots whenever you want to.
I thought you YOLO'd them directly forwards for a grenade turn 1.
I do that sometimes, but that almost worked. Plus, it would have been funny if it had worked.
It would have been very funny.
High variance play, bad idea, but we were both not in the undefeated bracket, so I didn't care what the outcome of the game was.
Fair. Paul asks a question, which is, a question and then has a request. What armies are you planning on baiting fellow Pyra attendees to taking into WTC this year? Which, if you told them, would no longer be baiting them because they would know.
Yeah, I'm trying to trick everybody into playing Thousand Suns. Little known army, you might not have heard of it. Liam VSL is not attending this year, so I assume that there'll be
no. We need to get them to play Drukhari. We need someone to make up for the fact that we don't have a Skari this year.
There you go.
I mean, Starry played Necrons last year. You didn't have a Starry last year.
All right, and then Jeremy, pick his faction for vibe check.
All right, I'll pick your faction first. I just want to share with the cast right now. When I tried to put Paul's comment into the YouTube stream using our account, it rejected it as spam. Which was what armies are you planning on debating fellow Pyra attendees? I was like, all right, fine. Paul, you are going to play Thousand Suns since you ditched them so mercilessly for Chaos Space Marine. So go back to them.
All right.
You've been told.
Nicholas asks, favorite 1/3/9-inch gauges.
So we have a new sponsor. And I'm just going to toss this up right now because this thing is so cool and I absolutely love it.
Is this the nesting one?
Yeah. So people, I'm sure that there are others that make this. I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Window this one.
Okay, Dad.
This right here. I'm gonna hide that. This right here is the nested gauge that J15 Games makes. It's magnetized and it has a like little 1, 2, 3 combat gauge. It has a slightly larger one, and then it has the full 9-inch gauge, and they all nest into each other and are held in together by some really nice little magnets. Really clean, really sharp. I love this thing. I've seen a lot of people that have them, and I'm ordering a couple from Anthony from J15, not our Anthony. We should get some stat check ones done up.
My favorite thing there is that you just have a folder called shipping.
Where is
It's
that?
actually nothing to do with it's nothing to do with mailing stuff. It's entirely different kind.
It's the relationship.
Oh yeah. No, that's so that's hilariously enough where I put all of the tracking codes when someone sends me that stuff is showing in. So I just click on it and it opens all
I was
the tabs
so
at
hoping
once.
it was.
I definitely
Anthony's,
believe
like,
you that it's
Anthony
not
X Tim
related.
fan fiction,
It's definitely
but
not me shipping together using Chat GPT all of the various 40K content creators.
It definitely is not, and nobody should look in that folder. And then Ben has the last question in Discord for the evening, which is mayo, ketchup, or mustard. One has to go. Which one is it? I'm going to do the hot take and say that it's a mayonnaise. I hate mayonnaise. Mayonnaise has to go. Get out of here.
I don't like mayo or mustard. So
Okay, we got 2 votes for mayonnaise so far. Jeremy?
Ketchup.
Oh, boy.
You can make a
All
really nice frite sauce with mayo, and mayo is great on sandwiches. I could do without ketchup. It's just tomatoes.
All right. Now I'm going to try to blast through as many of these as we can, as quickly as we can. Valentine asks, hi, lads. Thoughts on new CSM for Teams format? Which detachment would you play?
Raiders or Vashtor. Fast, good, punchy shooting. Really funny, kill yourself shooting.
you sure do kill yourself a lot. Let's not get demonetized.
Kelly Hosing asks, are Space Wolves good enough now to waste points on a Santa Slay as a flex? I don't think Santa's a flex on that list. He's just good.
So
just put
him
though.
with the battle leader that then gives you the turn 1 ingress, coupled with 6 Thunderwolf cavalry, is very funny. I don't think it's actually that bad.
KR Quintero says, so the 4 Imperium... Damn it, that always trips me out when somebody starts untabbing my questions. KR Quintero says, so the 4 Imperium Codex are all in the bottom 5. Did I hear that correctly? Yes. There
Sounds
are...
right. Let's hope for Sisters to make it 5.
Pizza Guardian asks, hello, guys. How have you been? All in caps.
Ashik.
I'm not yelling today.
Well,
Hi,
Ashik,
Ashik.
thank you.
Looking forward to seeing you in 6
3
weeks,
months.
8 weeks.
Something like that. It's an amount.
I went to see Furiosa. It was good.
All right. Next question is from Ben McJurek, who super chatted, how do the hosts feel about WTC's War Boss ruling? Which I think is that the War Boss, if he's inside of a transport, is not affected by the WA, if it's called. So if you disembark, you don't get the effects of the WA on that War Boss. I personally think
War Boss and the War Boss and Megan Armor, it's not. I mean, I can't say with certainty it's not intended, but it certainly seems unintended because it has a timing condition on it. But it is very funny that he can't hear himself scream the wall.
Well, I mean, if we don't let Vulcan pick an objective when he's in a transport and you cover his ability, and you don't get to pick a strategic conqueror objective when you're in a transport, I don't see why they should get the WA.
I don't think those are the same thing.
I don't care. I think if you're in a transport, you don't exist right now. Tough luck.
I just don't think those are the same thing. I'm just going to say it. I think the WTC ruling was wrong.
Well, also the WTC ruling isn't a ruling until the Orc FAQ comes, and then they decide if that's going to be how it is. It was this is how we feel it will be interpreted, but the FAQ may change this. This is also why they basically don't rule on stuff until there's an FAQ, which leads to the more fun discussion that we're having currently in Captain's Chat.
Fair. CM Supreme says, since Custodies are just barely below 45% win rate, do you think just an update for the mortal wound protection in each detachment to also cover dev wounds will be enough?
If every single one of the mortal wound abilities also protected against dev wounds, they might hit 45%.
I think there's still some sauce.
Think they would.
I still think there's sauce in there, and people will just get it to 45% eventually. I think y'all just need to innovate some more. Just do that.
Exactly. Yep. Run more Custody swords. I've not seen any Custody player trying out axes yet, and until I've seen them try axes, I refuse to acknowledge that they tied everything in that codex.
Fair. Tim G asks, best hobby money you've ever spent? For me, it's an airbrush. I love my airbrush.
for me, and it's actually right next to me, it's this folding daylight light.
That's a good one.
I bought it.
Are we talking hobby as in like hobby as in the hobby of Warhammer, or hobby as in like the painting of Warhammer?
Hobby in
Any
general, I
hobby.
would say. That
Oh,
or a cart for tournaments.
The first WTC ticket that I ever purchased, obviously.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. It's a good answer. Good answer, NS. Paint Celestine asks, how do we help Crisis Suits so Tau start taking them again?
Kill
Don't
Riptides.
just take Riptides and other hulls. They're more fun.
It's
And don't bleed as much, bring it down as suits do.
I think it's okay that the suits are just mediocre. I think it's okay.
They're fine. They're not
We
great,
had-
but they're also not bad.
We had a whole edition of where people were taking like 18 to 27 suits not that long ago. We don't need it to be like that every edition. It's okay. Paint Celestine has the next two questions. The next one is also, is it a failure in design when the most iconic... I feel like this is a theme. Iconic unit in a faction is just bad. It hurts every time Terminators are bad.
Yes, probably, but it's also a thematic, like, what are Terminators meant to be good at?
Aggressively existing.
Give them the Megan Up Feel No Pain. Or Feel No Pain when targeted by the Oath target.
When targeted by the Oath target? That's a cool triggerable. I like that.
That sounds like something you'd put in Angel Siege Force.
It's not really the first one, actually, but
The next one is, now that the Codex has been released, what are your thoughts on splitting Crisis? God damn it, in three Crisis Suits in three.
I think it was actually a good call.
Changed.
And hear me out here. The reason that I think it was a good call is Sibs were gone. Sibs were not going to be coming back. Explicitly because, like, you look at it and you kind of go, they're not in the box. There's only one in the commander box. They should never have been something that were able to be spammed to the degree that they are. And they were so good that they skewed the math on every other weapon option for Crisis Suits. Now that you have the fixed loadouts for, well, semi-fixed loadouts for three of them, each one has a rule. Now, you could have done that where you kept them as one data sheet and it's if equipped with this, they get this, if equipped with this, but that just gets messy. Now you can also take, like, I think it's good, you can take 27 Crisis Suits in units of 3. But I think that the specific rules for each one is actually really nice as opposed to the more generic, you auto advance 6. I think is what they had before.
yep.
I think being able to point for the war gear that things are equipped with is kind of nice. You know, just maybe as a balance.
We don't
point.
have the capacity for that. The
Maybe-
technology doesn't exist.
That'd be
Maybe
good,
at some point we could return to war gear costs or something.
I
like
look forward to
that.
getting Acolytes with demo charges as a separate war gear option this GSC Codex, by the way. I would be
That will
so
be funny.
disappointed if it didn't happen.
I mean, that's if they did it with Dragoons, they could do it with fucking
Yeah, exactly. I feel like they
Acolytes.
should, right?
And then our last question is from Adam Camilleri. If I check one stat, will I get my second stat for free? Your stats are always free, Adam Camilleri.
We are not a
That's just
stattle
how it
tactic.
is.
You cannot spam us.
I was just going to say that Adam Camilleri could have all the stats for free if he starts saying the name of our show correctly. Show.
No, I want him to continue saying stats check just because of how livid it makes Cliff.
I want him to keep saying it because it puts our name in his mouth, and that's free advertising. So
That's true. I love Adam Camilleri to death and have one of his jerseys somewhere from last WTC.
like they
I will
gave
never
you,
not
or
be
you just
amused.
acquired.
He gave it to me. How else would I acquire it? Like off of his back, like running by, taking his jersey, and running away.
That proves you didn't.
off his
do you think I got this
drunken
one?
body. No, not off of his body when he falls asleep from working too hard at WTC. I don't know, man. Left it in the hotel room. Yes, Kelly, that's how I would get it. That is the last question for the evening. Innes has insisted that I do this before we do anything else. So I'm going to do this for the Crisp High 5 tier, which is the $15 a month tier, where you get a bunch of bonuses if you see us in person, including one of those bonuses, which is I will read off your names at the end of this. Really, though, it's quite funny is that this group resists any and all attempts to organize it in any fashion whatsoever, except when they self-organize in whatever way that they want to. And this week, everybody is eye-ear after our $15 a month
Actually,
tier.
not even
the
slightly
Crisp
true. There
High
are
5
only
tier.
6 people in there, and only one of them is IER. So
Yeah, but they're all eye-ear. One of them, eye-ear even said eye-ear emoji as what he wanted to be. So it's everybody your eyes and ears.
but they're not in the Google sheet, so you don't have to read them out. That's not how that's not
I
how
don't
this works.
care. I'm doing this the way that I want to do it, which is that they just don't want to follow any structure, and we're just going to keep going with it.
It's the
And
worst.
woe betide anybody who tries to organize the people who are in this tier. If you
I
want to
love
have,
and appreciate all of you, but that response was just so like,
it was
listen
very
here, you
peak.
little shit.
So thank you everybody for being in that tier. Here is your crisp high five. It's only for the people who get the $15 a month tier. None of you others can claim it. Here is your high five from me. And if you see us at an event, you can claim your crisp high five in person, along with any of the other benefits that are detailed in that tier's note.
Yep. Shout out to Bradley, who did actually claim the crisp high five from me at Dallas.
All right. That's it, Ennis. That's all I got.
Thank you so much, everybody, joining with us for another slightly bumper and slightly delayed episode of Stat Check. This has been episode 93, 1 month in Meta Top Dogs. I've been Ennis. I've been joined by Nathan and Jeremy. If you're at a tournament this weekend, very best of luck. I hope you smash it. If you see us, come and say hi. I don't think any of us are at one this weekend, so I don't think that's a particularly useful one. Actually, no, Anthony's at DreamHack, right? Is that this weekend?
Yes, Anthony will be at DreamHack. For anyone who doesn't know, DreamHack Dallas is not the cool DreamHack in Europe. DreamHack Dallas is putting on a little showcase,
Exhibition.
I guess. Yeah, exhibition of 40K. There are four teams of 8 that are going to be playing a little round robin. Team USA, Art of War,
United Midwest Project, and
Tabletop Live.
Tabletop Live, that's the one.
Yeah.
So that'll be on, I assume, the DreamHack coverage stream somewhere. Go check that out. We'll be putting that into our Discord all over the place. Right, I think that's all I got. I hope everybody has a great time. Good luck again at events. Nathan, do the outro bit.
Bye-bye.